Close your eyes for a moment. Take a slow breath in and let it go. There is nothing you need to do right now. Nowhere you need to be. No thought that needs your attention. The day is behind you, softly fading like the last light on a quiet evening. And ahead of you is only this: a gentle journey through the most peaceful darkness you can imagine. We are going to travel tonight. Not quickly, not urgently. We are going to drift, the way a feather drifts on still water. We are going to move through space, through the vast, silent, beautiful space that holds our solar system, and we are going to visit each world in turn. Each one is different. Each one has its own color, its own quiet, its own kind of stillness. And all of them are waiting for us, patient as they have always been, turning slowly in the dark. Let your body grow heavy now. Let the weight of your arms and your legs sink down into wherever you are lying. Let your shoulders fall. Let your jaw relax. There is nothing to hold on to tonight. You can let everything be soft. We begin our journey at the very center of things. The sun far away, and yet the source of everything, the sun, is waiting. Even from a great distance, you can sense it before you see it. There is a warmth that reaches out across the emptiness of space, a golden radiance that travels for millions of miles and still arrives as light on your face, as warmth on your hands, as the soft glow through a window on a quiet afternoon. That light left the sun 8 minutes ago, and now it is here with you, gentle and unhurried. The sun is enormous. If you could hold it in your mind all at once, this great, luminous sphere, it would fill your imagination the way a full moon fills a dark sky. It is so large that more than 1 million Earths could fit inside it. And yet, from where we stand in the universe, it is simply a star. One of hundreds of billions of stars in our galaxy alone. A calm, steady, middle-aged star that has been burning quietly for about 4.5 billion years, and will continue to do so for billions more. Imagine it now. A vast, glowing ball of golden white light, turning slowly in the darkness. Its surface is not perfectly still. There are soft, rolling movements, great arcs of bright gas that rise and fall in graceful, unhurried curves. These are called prominences, and they move the way smoke moves above a candle, slowly, dreamily, following invisible currents. The color of the sun from far away is almost white for pure, clean brightness. But as its light travels through atmosphere, through dust, through distance, it softens. It becomes gold. It becomes amber. It becomes the warm orange of a late afternoon, the deep rose of sunset, the pale honey color of early morning. The sun is a painter that uses only distance and air to create its colors. Everything in our solar system exists because of the sun. Every planet, every moon, every drifting comet and tumbling asteroid, all of them were born from the same great cloud of gas and dust that collapsed, long ago, into what became our star. The planets are, in a sense, the sun's children. And like a patient parent, it holds them all in its gravitational embrace, drawing them gently around it in their slow, endless orbits. For a moment, simply rest in the warmth of that image. A glowing light at the center of a great dark space, and all around it, at different distances, quiet worlds turning in their slow circles. Each one held safely in place. Each one going around and around, year after year, in perfect, unhurried rhythm. Breathe in. Breathe out. We are going to begin moving now slowly, effortlessly, the way you move in a dream outward from the sun, toward the first of the planets. The one closest to the fire. The smallest and the swiftest. Mercury is small. It is the smallest planet in our solar system, only a little larger than our own moon, and it sits closer to the sun than any other world. If you imagine the sun as a warm lamp in the center of a very large, very quiet room, Mercury is the first object resting on the floor near the lamp. Close enough to feel the heat clearly. Close enough that the lamp fills a large part of its sky. But Mercury, despite its closeness to the sun, is a world of surprising contrasts. By day, the surface is scorched. The temperature rises to heights that would melt lead, the rocks baking in a silence so complete that it becomes almost its own kind of presence. There is no air here to carry sound, no wind to whisper, no weather of any kind. Just the sun, huge and brilliant above, and the ancient gray surface below, still and undisturbed. And then the sun sets on Mercury slowly, because Mercury turns on its axis with extraordinary patience, one day lasting nearly 2 of our Earth months, then everything changes. Without an atmosphere to hold the warmth, the heat simply vanishes into space. The temperature falls and falls, dropping to hundreds of degrees below zero over the long, dark night. Where it was burning hot, it becomes deeply, profoundly cold. Mercury holds neither warmth nor cold for long. It simply passes through them, one after the other, in its ancient rhythm. The surface of Mercury is gray and quiet. It is covered with craters around, gentle indentations in the rock, left by collisions that happened billions of years ago when the solar system was young and busier than it is now. Those craters have been there ever since, perfectly preserved. Nothing erodes them. No rain falls here. No wind blows. No roots push through the stone. Everything is exactly as it was left, long, long ago, like marks pressed into clay that hardened and forgot to change. There is something peaceful about that kind of permanence. A world that simply holds its shape across billions of years, wearing its old scars quietly. If you stood on the surface of Mercury and looked up, you would see stars. You would see them even in the middle of the day, because there is no blue sky here, no atmosphere to scatter the sunlight and fill the sky with color. The sky above Mercury is simply black. Pure, velvety black, scattered with stars that never twinkle, because there is no air to make them shimmer. They are just there, steady and still. And the sun from Mercury's surface is 3 times larger than we see it from Earth. 3 times larger, brighter, more present. You would not want to look at it directly, but you could feel it. That deep, ancient warmth, pressing down on the gray rocks, on the silent craters, on the long, unbroken plains. There is also, and this is a gentle surprise, ice on Mercury. Hidden in the deep shadows of craters near the poles, where the sun's light never quite reaches, water ice has been lying quietly for millions of years. Brought perhaps by ancient comets, preserved in permanent shadow. Cold and still and patient. Mercury is a world of extremes that somehow, in its stillness, holds a kind of balance. We let Mercury rest behind us now. We have barely begun. The next world is already visible, a soft, bright point of light, the most brilliant thing in the sky after the sun and moon, glowing with a steady, pearlescent radiance. Venus is the brightest planet. You have almost certainly seen it, even if you did not know what you were looking at, a steady, unwavering point of silver-white light near the horizon just after sunset, or just before dawn. For thousands of years, people called it the evening star, or the morning star, not realizing it was the same object appearing into different parts of the sky at different times of year. From a distance, Venus is genuinely beautiful. It is almost exactly the same size as Earth, our near twin in the architecture of the solar system. When you look at it through a telescope, you see a smooth, featureless disk of pale cream and white. No markings. No visible surface. Just cloud, endless cloud, wrapped around the planet in thick, layered blankets that reflect sunlight so well that Venus shines brighter than almost anything else in the sky. Those clouds are high, much higher than any clouds on Earth, and they swirl around Venus in slow, sweeping patterns, covering the entire planet in a continuous, unbroken veil. From the outside, Venus looks serene, soft, almost welcoming. Beneath the clouds, things are different. Venus holds its heat the way a thick blanket holds warmth of a dense atmosphere, trapping the sun's energy until the surface temperature climbs to nearly 500 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt tin. Hot enough that even the night side stays almost as warm as the day side. Venus is the hottest planet in our solar system, despite not being the closest to the sun. It is a world that simply holds everything in. Nothing escapes. Nothing cools. But we do not need to think too much about the heat tonight. We can simply appreciate the beauty of Venus from a safe and comfortable distance. The way those creamy clouds glow in the sunlight, turning slowly, endlessly. The way the planet shines in the sky with such steadiness that sailors and poets and wanderers have used it as a landmark for as long as human memory stretches back. Venus also has a gentle strangeness that makes it quietly unique. It rotates very slowly in the opposite direction from most planets. On Venus, the sun rises in the west and sets in the east. And a single day on Venus, measured in hours, is actually longer than a whole Venusian year. It takes longer for Venus to spin once around its own axis than it does for it to travel all the way around the sun. Time works differently here. The rhythms are different, ancient and slow, and turned around. There is something dreamlike about that. A world where the sun rises in the wrong direction, wrapped in clouds that never part, glowing like a lantern in the darkness. We watch Venus from a peaceful distance, appreciating its quiet glow. And then, gently, we move on. Because the next world is the one we know best. The one we live on. And seeing it from space or from out here, drifting among the planets, is one of the most quietly moving things the imagination can offer. Earth, there it is. blue and white and impossibly, breathtakingly alive. From space, Earth is a blue world, deeply, richly blue, the color of wide oceans, the color of distance, the color of depth. The oceans cover more than 2/3 of the surface, and they catch the sunlight and hold it, giving the planet a soft inner glow that no other world in our solar system can quite match. From far away, Earth looks luminous, like something lit from the inside. Swirled across that blue are the clouds, white and bright, forever moving, forever reshaping themselves. They curl into spirals over the oceans. They gather in long, gentle lines along mountain ranges. They drift across continents in slow, sweeping gestures. The clouds are never the same twice. They are the planet's breath, endlessly moving, endlessly changing. Beneath the clouds, if the sky is clear, you can see the brown and green and gold of the land. Great continents that have been drifting slowly for hundreds of millions of years, carrying mountains and deserts and forests and ice on their backs. From space, the shapes of continents look like the pieces of a puzzle that was taken apart a very long time ago and left scattered across the blue floor of the ocean. There is a thin line around the edge of Earth, visible only when you look at the planet with its dark side facing you, so that the sunlit edge catches the light. This line is the atmosphere. It is surprisingly delicate, far thinner, relative to the size of the planet, than the skin of an apple is to the apple. And yet everything, every breath, every cloud, every weather system, every blue sky, and every sunset that happens within that thin, precious shell. Earth is alive. That is what makes it unique among all the worlds we will visit tonight. Not just alive in the sense of geology of shifting plates, erupting volcanoes, flowing rivers, but alive with organisms, with creatures, with the extraordinary, improbable, for billion-year experiment biology. From the deep ocean trenches where strange pale fish drift through permanent darkness, to the forests where the light filters green through 10,000 layers of leaves, to the plains where grasses bend in the wind and the sky goes on forever, the earth is full of life. And right now, on the night side of the earth, there are millions of people lying down to sleep, in warm beds and in simple ones, in quiet rooms and in humming cities, all of them breathing slowly, drifting toward the same soft darkness, all of them held safely on the surface of this blue and spinning world, going around and around the sun at a speed of nearly 30 kilometers per second, fast enough to circle the earth in about 15 minutes, and yet feeling perfectly, completely still. You are one of them, lying somewhere on the surface of this remarkable planet, held gently by its gravity, breathing its old and precious air. Let that thought rest with you for a moment. You are on a planet. You are in space. You are part of something ancient and very, very large. And you are safe. And you are still. Breathe in. Breathe out. We leave the earth behind now, not with sadness, but with the quiet knowledge that it will be there when we return. It always is. And we continue outward, toward the next world, a little farther from the sun, a little cooler, a little redder. Mars is rust-colored and quiet. From a distance, it looks like a small ember in the darkness, a faint, warm, reddish-orange light, moving steadily among the stars. Up close, the color deepens into something richer. The deep burnt sienna of ancient iron, the soft terracotta of desert plains, the dusky rose of a sky thick with fine, red dust. Mars is about half the size of Earth. Smaller, quieter, colder. The atmosphere here is very thin, so thin that you could not breathe it, so thin that it barely holds any warmth. During the day, the temperature at the equator might rise above freezing for a few short hours. By night, it plummets to a cold so deep that the very air begins to condense onto the rocks as frost. The sky on Mars is pale pink. Not the deep blue of Earth, but a delicate, dusty, pink beige, the color of the red dust that is always drifting through the air. Fine particles, light enough to float, settle so slowly that they never quite come to rest before new ones join them. The Martian sky is a permanent, gentle haze. When you look at photographs taken by the rovers that have traveled slowly across the Martian surface, you see a landscape that feels almost familiar. Rocks, sand, a horizon, a pale sky. But there is a stillness to it that is different from anywhere on Earth, the completeness to the silence. Nothing moves except the wind, sometimes in long slow sweeps across the plains. No animals, no insects, no distant sound of traffic or music or voices. Just the patient, unbroken quiet of a very old, very still world. Mars has mountains. Great ones. Olympus Mons is the largest volcano in the solar system and nearly 3 times the height of Mount Everest, and so wide at its base that if you stood at the edge you could not see the summit because it curves below the horizon. It rises from the plains in a long, slow slope, like a great gentle hill, until suddenly the scale of it becomes clear, and it is simply immense. There are also canyons, a vast system called Valles Marineris that stretches across the surface of Mars for thousands of kilometers, so wide and so deep that the Grand Canyon of Earth would look like a small crack beside it. Standing at the rim of Valles Marineris and looking across would be like looking across an entire small country. At the poles of Mars, there are ice caps of pale, bright patches visible even from a distance. They expand and contract with the Martian seasons, growing in the long, cold winters and retreating in the brief warmth of summer. Part of this ice is water, frozen and still. Part of it is frozen carbon dioxide, dry ice that sublimates in the spring, turning directly to gas and drifting up into the thin air. There is something deeply peaceful about Mars. Its stillness is not the stillness of something waiting to happen. It is the stillness of something very old that has already happened, that has settled completely into itself, that has found its equilibrium after billions of years of change, and is simply resting now. A rover moves across its surface at the speed of a gentle walk. It takes photographs. It analyzes rocks. It sends its findings, slowly, across hundreds of millions of miles of space, to small rooms where people sit and read the data with quiet wonder. There is something beautiful about that connection, about a machine made by human hands, rolling slowly across the rust-colored plains of another world, while its makers sit at their desks and think about what it might mean. We say a quiet goodbye to Mars, to its pale pink sky and its ancient, patient silence, and we drift on. Between Mars and the next planet, there is a wide belt of space scattered with tumbling rocks and ancient, dusty asteroids, remnants of the solar system's earliest days, never quite gathered into a planet. We pass through it slowly, surrounded by these quiet, irregular shapes drifting in the dark, and then, ahead of us, something very large and very beautiful comes into view. Jupiter. Jupiter is vast. The word barely captures it. Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system by a very great margin of more than twice as massive as all the other planets combined. If the Sun is a lamp in the center of a large room, Jupiter is a football sitting on the floor some distance away. Earth, next to it, would be the size of a grape. And yet Jupiter, despite its size, spins faster than any other planet. One day on Jupiter lasts only about 10 hours. This rapid spin stretches the planet slightly at the equator, giving it a shape that is very gently flattened and not a perfect sphere, but something a little wider than it is tall, like a ball that has been held gently from the sides. The colors of Jupiter are warm and soft, cream and amber, pale orange and golden brown, with bands of lighter and darker cloud running in smooth parallel stripes from pole to pole. These bands are layers in the planet's deep atmosphere, different altitudes, different temperatures, different compositions, all moving at slightly different speeds, creating the banded pattern that makes Jupiter so distinctive. There is no solid surface on Jupiter, no place to land, no ground to stand on. The planet is made almost entirely of hydrogen and helium, are the two lightest elements in the universe, and as you descend into its atmosphere, the gas grows denser and denser until it slowly becomes a liquid, and then, far deeper, under pressures we can barely imagine, the hydrogen becomes something strange. A liquid metal that conducts electricity, creating the powerful magnetic field that surrounds Jupiter like a vast, invisible shield. Near the equator, there is a storm. There has been a storm in this spot for at least 400 years, or perhaps much longer. It is called the Great Red Spot, and it is an enormous, swirling, oval-shaped cyclone larger than the entire Earth. It rotates slowly, taking about 6 Earth days to complete one turn in a vast, unhurried spiral. The color is a deep, warm brick red, fading at the edges into pale orange and cream. There is something almost hypnotic about the Great Red Spot. The way it turns. The way it persists, century after century, outlasting everything we have ever built on Earth. The way it simply exists, this enormous, patient storm on a world that has no shore and no season, and no night the way we understand night. Round Jupiter, for large moons travel in their quiet orbits. Io, the innermost, glows in yellows and oranges from the sulfur of its constant volcanoes. Europa, smooth and white, is covered in a shell of ice beneath which, in the profound cold and dark of an ocean that never sees sunlight, there may be liquid water. Ganymede, larger than the planet Mercury, is a world of ice and rock, dark in some places, bright in others, ancient and quiet. Callisto, the outermost, is covered in craters so old and so many that almost every part of the surface has been struck at some point across the long history of the solar system. For worlds, each different, each circling patiently around their enormous parent planet, which in turn circles patiently around the sun. There is a word for the feeling of being small in the presence of something very large and very calm. It is not fear. It is closer to peace. The kind of peace that comes when you stop trying to hold everything together and simply let the scale of things wash over you. Jupiter gives you that feeling. We stay near it for a moment, watching the bands of cloud move, watching the great red spot turn slowly in its ancient spiral, watching the four bright moons drift along their paths. And then we move on, out into the cooler, darker, quieter reaches of the outer solar system. The next planet is one you will recognize immediately, even from far away. Saturn is ringed. Even knowing it, even expecting it, the sight still does something to you. There is a planet, a large, pale, golden planet, and around its middle, parallel to its equator, there is a wide, flat, luminous ring. Not one ring, but many of dozens of them, nested inside each other, each slightly different, separated by dark gaps. Together they form a disk so wide that it would stretch more than halfway from the Earth to the Moon, and so thin, so extraordinarily thin, relative to their width that they are thinner, in proportion, than a sheet of paper. The rings are made of ice. Countless billions of particles, from tiny specks of frost to chunks of ice the size of a house ball orbiting Saturn together, all moving at roughly the same speed, all slowly circling. When sunlight falls on them, they catch it and scatter it in every direction, glowing with a soft, diffuse brightness that makes them look almost as if they are made of light itself. The colors of Saturn are gentle, softer and more muted than Jupiter. Pale gold, warm cream, a faint dusty amber. The bands in the atmosphere are there, but subtler, as though the planet is a slightly quieter version of its larger neighbor. More reserved, more still. There is something extraordinary about Saturn's density, or rather, its lack of density. Saturn is so large and yet so light, composed mostly of hydrogen and helium, held together loosely, that it is actually less dense than liquid water. If you could find a bathtub large enough, Saturn would float in it. Saturn's largest moon is called Titan, and it is one of the most unusual worlds in the solar system. It is larger than the planet Mercury, and it has a thick atmosphere, the only moon in the solar system with one. The atmosphere is mostly nitrogen, like Earth's, but heavy with orange haze, a perpetual smog of complex organic molecules that blurs the surface from view. Beneath that haze, Titan has rivers and lakes. Not of water, it is far too cold for liquid water here, more than 1 billion kilometers from the sun, but of liquid methane. Methane rain falls on Titan. Methane rivers flow down from ice mountains into methane lakes and seas. The landscape is brown and orange, lit by a dim and distant sun. And somewhere in those cold, amber lakes, drifting in slow orange rivers, organic chemistry is quietly at work with the same building blocks, perhaps, that were once the first steps toward life on Earth. Playing out again in a different medium, in a different cold, on a different world. Another of Saturn's moons, Enceladus, is small and ice-white and beautiful, and through cracks in its frozen south pole, it sprays jets of water vapor into space, like a slow, cold fountain. Beneath its ice, there is a liquid ocean, kept warm by the flexing and squeezing of Saturn's gravity. And in that ocean, conditions might exist, that could support some form of simple life. We do not know. And for tonight, the not knowing is gentle. It is a quiet mystery to hold, like a smooth stone in your hand, as you drift further into the dark. Saturn turns slowly below us, its rings glowing, its atmosphere quiet and golden. We watch for a long, soft moment. We let the beauty of it settle. And then we continue outward, into the coldest and most distant reaches of our solar system, where the sun is just a very bright star, and the darkness is very complete. Uranus is blue-green, pale and cool and strangely, quietly beautiful, a soft aquamarine sphere hanging in the dark like a watercolor wash of sea and sky. It is the third largest planet in the solar system, and it is far, very far from the sun. The sunlight that reaches Uranus is only a small fraction of what warms the Earth. The temperatures here drop to nearly 100 degrees below zero. Everything about Uranus is cold. Everything is slow. Everything is deep. The color comes from methane, a gas in the upper atmosphere that absorbs red light and reflects blue and green, giving the planet its distinctive, gentle hue. There are no dramatic bands here, No vivid storms at least, none that are easily visible from a distance, no bright red spots or swirling cyclones. Just a smooth, even, softly glowing sphere of pale teal. But Uranus has a strangeness to it that is unlike any other planet. It is tipped. Dramatically, completely tipped, lying on its side, so that its poles point more or less toward and away from the Sun as it orbits, rather than up and down. Some ancient collision, a world-sized object striking Uranus long ago in the early days of the solar system, knocked it over, and it has been lying on its side ever since, rolling along its orbit like a ball rolling down a gentle slope. This gives Uranus the most extreme seasons of any planet. Each pole spends about 42 Earth years in continuous sunlight, then 42 years in complete darkness. Imagine a summer that lasts for decades, followed by a winter of equal length or winter of absolute dark. The rhythms of Uranus are vast and slow beyond anything we experience. Uranus also has rings, discovered only in the late 20th century, and far less dramatic than Saturn's. They are narrow, dark, and faint, more like dim halos than bright disks. They encircle the planet's equator, which, because the planet is tipped, means they go over and under rather than around the middle. It is a subtle, elegant feature of a planet that seems to do everything a little differently. Around Uranus, moons orbit with names drawn from the plays of Shakespeare and Titania and Oberon, Miranda and Ariel, Umbriel, and others. Miranda, the smallest of the main moons, has a landscape of extraordinary variety. Cliffs and canyons, plains and ridges, as if pieces of completely different worlds were assembled together into one. The tallest cliff in the solar system is believed to be on Miranda, a sheer drop so immense that an object falling from the top would take about 10 minutes to reach the bottom in the moon's weak gravity. There is something contemplative about Uranus, a planet that lies on its side, surrounded by dark rings, circled by moons with poetic names, glowing its soft and quiet aquamarine in the darkness. It asks nothing of you. It simply exists, far out in the cold, turning its long slow seasons in the distant light of a sun that is now just the brightest star in a very dark sky. We rest here for a moment. We breathe. We let the cool blue-green color wash over us like the color of deep, still water. And then we go further. One last planet to visit. The most distant. The coldest. The last world in our quiet tour. Neptune. Neptune is blue. Not the pale aquamarine of Uranus, but a deeper, richer, more vivid blue, the blue of a deep ocean, the blue of twilight, the blue of something very far away. From space, it glows with a color so pure and so intense that it looks almost luminous, as though the darkness around it makes the blue somehow brighter, by contrast. Neptune is the outermost planet in our solar system. It orbits so far from the Sun that the sunlight reaching it is about 900 times weaker than what falls on Earth. The Sun, from Neptune's surface, would look like a very bright star, brilliant, but small, without warmth. A point of light in a very dark sky. At this distance, the solar system feels like it has exhaled completely. Everything is spread out, thin, quiet. The space between objects is immense. Neptune's nearest significant neighbor is Uranus, and Uranus is far. Out here, in the outermost realm of our Sun's kingdom, there is a profound sense of distance, of being at the very edge. And yet Neptune is alive with motion. It has the fastest winds in the solar system, streaks and ribbons of cloud racing around the planet at speeds of over 2,000 kilometers per hour. These winds blow in the direction opposite to the planet's rotation, which is unusual and not fully understood. Neptune does many things that are not fully understood. The deep blue of Neptune is the same process as Uranus and methane, absorbing red light and reflecting blue. But something in Neptune's atmosphere, perhaps other compounds, perhaps subtle differences in temperature and pressure, deepens the blue into something richer, more vivid, more purely, intensely blue. On Neptune, there are storms. One famous storm, observed when Voyager 2 flew past in 1989, was called the Great Dark Spot, an oval of darker blue in the bright surface, turning slowly, reminiscent of Jupiter's Great Red Spot but somehow softer, more mysterious. By the time the Hubble Space Telescope looked at Neptune again, the Great Dark Spot was gone, dissolved, replaced by other, smaller clouds and swirls. Neptune's storms do not last forever. They come and go, appearing and disappearing in the deep blue, leaving no permanent mark. There is something both restless and deeply peaceful about Neptune. Restless in its winds, in its shifting storms. Peaceful in its deep color, in its great distance, in the long, slow pace of its orbit. 1 year on Neptune lasts 165 Earth years. The last time Neptune completed a full orbit around the Sun, humans were just beginning to industrialize. And in that single orbital period, barely anything has changed out here. The blue is the same. The dark is the same. The cold is the same. Neptune has moons. The largest Triton is extraordinary. It orbits Neptune backwards, moving in the opposite direction from the planet's rotation, which suggests it was captured long ago from elsewhere, perhaps from the distant outer reaches of the solar system. Triton is cold, one of the coldest surfaces in the solar system. Its surface is covered with frozen nitrogen, so cold it looks almost pinkish. And from beneath that icy surface, geysers of nitrogen gas shoot upward, rising several kilometers into the thin atmosphere before being caught by the wind and drifting slowly downwind in dark, feathery plumes. Geysers on the most distant moon of the most distant planet, firing quietly into the cold dark. There is something wonderful about that. Something that reminds us that even at the very edge of things, even in the most remote and frozen corners of the solar system, the universe finds a way to be active, to move, to do something unexpected and beautiful. We watch Triton for a long, quiet moment. The dark plumes trailing in the wind. The pinkish ice glowing faintly in starlight. The blue sphere of Neptune turning slowly above it in the black. And this is where our journey rests for tonight. We are at the edge of the known solar system, 4 billion kilometers from the Sun, surrounded by a darkness so complete and so profound that it feels almost like a presence. The stars are everywhere here, not as they look from Earth, softened by atmosphere and scattered by light pollution, but raw and steady and countless. You could not count them if you tried. You could spend your whole life counting and not reach the end of what you can see from out here. And somewhere back along the path we have traveled, back through the cold blue of Neptune, back past the glowing storms of Jupiter, back through the warm haze of Venus, back past the red quiet of Mars, back to that improbable, luminous, blue and white sphere hanging in the dark. Somewhere back there is the planet where you are lying right now, still and comfortable and breathing slowly. You have been on a journey tonight. A long, quiet journey through worlds of ice and fire and gas and ancient stone. You have visited a sun that will burn for billions of years, and a planet whose storms have lasted for centuries, and a moon with geysers of nitrogen rising into the dark. You have floated through the silence between worlds, moved through distances so vast they barely mean anything in ordinary language. And through all of it, you have been safe. You have been still. You have been exactly where you are, warm, comfortable, breathing. The solar system is vast. The universe beyond it is vaster still. Billions of galaxies, each with billions of stars, each with their own planets, their own moons, their own kinds of silence and color and distance. It goes on in every direction, in every way, further than any mind can hold. And yet here you are, one person on one planet, lying still in the dark, breathing quietly, part of all of it, made of the same material as the stars, of the same atoms, the same elements, the same ancient light, carbon forged in dying stars, iron scattered by ancient explosions, water carried here across billions of years of cosmic history. You are a child of the solar system tonight. Of the sun and the planets and the long, cold dark between them. Let that thought carry you gently toward sleep. The stars are out tonight. Whether you can see them or not, they are there, the same stars that were there before you were born, the same stars that will be there long after. Quiet, steady, unchanging in any way that matters on the scale of a human life. They hold their patterns. They turn with the slow rotation of the Earth. They are always there. And the planets are out tonight too. Jupiter, perhaps, bright above the horizon. Saturn, if you know where to look, steady and pale. Mars, with its faint reddish tint, moving slowly among the fixed stars. Venus, if it is evening or morning, brilliant and clear near the sun. They are all out there, right now, going around and around the sun in their slow and eternal circles. Held by gravity, lit by that ancient, patient light. Turning, and you are turning with them. On the surface of the Earth, which is tilting you gently toward the dark, which is carrying you at 30 kilometers per second through space, so smoothly you cannot feel it, which is holding you with a force so steady and so gentle that you never have to think about it. You are held tonight. You are carried. You are part of something enormous and quiet and very, very old. There is nothing to do tonight but rest. Nothing to think about. Nothing to hold on to. The solar system does not need your help to keep turning. The sun does not need anything from you tonight. The stars are fine. The planets are fine. Everything is moving as it always has, as it always will, in its vast and patient way. And you can sleep. You can let your breathing slow. You can let your thoughts grow soft and distant, like the light of a planet seen from far away, still there, still real, but gentle now, too far away to make any demands. Let the images drift through your mind softly. The golden warmth of the sun. The gray craters of Mercury, silent in the long dark. The glowing clouds of Venus, creamy and still from a distance. The blue and white of Earth, so alive, so fragile, so beautiful. The rust-red quiet of Mars and the pale pink of its dusty sky. The cream and amber bands of Jupiter and the ancient red storm turning slowly. The golden rings of Saturn, made of a billion pieces of ice, each one catching the light in its own way. The soft aquamarine of Uranus, tilted, serene. And Neptune are deep, vivid blue at the edge of everything, cold and beautiful and impossibly far away. All of them turning. All of them going around the sun. All of them held in the same ancient, gentle gravitational embrace that holds you right now to the surface of the world you are lying on. Breathe in. Breathe out. The night is quiet. The solar system is quiet. Everything is doing exactly what it is meant to do. And you are exactly where you are meant to be. Let sleep come now. Softly. Without effort. Like the light of a distant star arriving, at last, after its long journey through the dark, quietly, gently, finally here. Sleep well. The planets will still be there in the morning. They always are.